Little Bird Landing is a 1.5-acre property in Ravensdale, Washington, and is a mix of open pasture and woodland. It is approximately 1,080 feet in elevation. It is adjacent to the Cedar River watershed and sits between the Cedar River, which is 1 kilometer to the north, and the Green River, which is 2 miles to the south. The 3,700-foot McDonald Mountain is the closest mountain, and it looms at 3,700 feet to the southeast. Ravensdale is on the border of two distinct ecoregions of King County: the Western Cascades lowlands and valleys, and the Eastern Puget uplands. Western Cascades lowlands region is characterized by a network of steep ridges and narrow valleys. The elevation spread is 800 to 4,000 feet, but generally less than 3,200 feet, which is the lowest in the Cascades ecoregion. The ridges trend west, and the valleys have medium gradient rivers and streams. The Eastern Puget uplands is a transition zone made up of rolling moraines and foothills. The elevation ranges from 0 to 2,677 feet and is characterized by lakes and sinuous streams and rivers. Both regions include Douglas fir, western hemlock, western red cedar, vine maple, and alder forest. Ravensdale is referred to as a warm summer Mediterranean climate, CSB, on the Köppen climate classification. This climate is a subtype of Mediterranean climate and is characterized by chilly, extremely wet winters and warm, moderately humid summers. Specifically, there are no monthly averages higher than 72 degrees Fahrenheit. During the coldest months, the average temperature ranges between 27 and 64 degrees Fahrenheit. This is due to the cool Pacific Ocean currents and upwellings, and the altitude of the landscape. This climate type, which extends from western Washington south along the coast of Oregon and California, is also found on the northern Iberian Peninsula, central Chile, southern Australia, Morocco's Atlantic coast, and southwestern South Africa. In terms of United States Department of Agriculture hardiness zones, Ravensdale is 8B, meaning that the low temperatures range from 15 to 20 degrees Fahrenheit. The average first frost ranges from October 11th to October 20th, and the last frost ranges from April 21st to April 30th. This allows for a wide range of diverse plants. The property is home to many different tree species, but in this video I will be highlighting the conifers. Little Bird Landing lies on the border of the western hemlock and Pacific silver fir zone. There are several dozen trees, most of which are conifers. Most of them are native to western Washington, but some of them are uncommon in the area and are exotic species that do not occur outside of landscaped yards. The Pacific silver fir is native to western Washington, and we have several on the property. They occupy mid and upper montane zones and are extremely shade tolerant, but not drought tolerant. They can live over 400 years and reach heights of 150 feet. They develop unique long purple cones that disintegrate at maturity. They are found in the Pacific Coast Ranges and Cascade Range from southeast Alaska through British Columbia, Washington, Oregon, and northwestern California. On Ravens Ridge, located to the southeast of Little Bird Landing, it grows in the company of western hemlock. The western red cedar is perhaps the most abundant tree in Little Bird Landing and is also native of the Pacific Northwest. It is the largest tree in the Pacific Northwest as well, reaching heights up to 200 feet with circumference of 20 feet. Many species are over 1,500 years old, and like other members of the cypress family, its wood is decay resistant. This tree prefers moist soils, and it would probably be the most dominant tree in western Washington had the entire area been free from fire for the last 3,000 years. Western hemlock is less common on Little Bird Landing, despite being the forest zone that the property occupies. There are a few smaller trees in the yard, but have not yet reached their full potential. Western hemlocks are shorter-lived trees, typically reaching 200 years of age because they are more prone to fungus and rot. However, they can still reach heights of over 230 feet. Douglas fir are abundant at Little Bird Landing. They typically prefer drier and more well-drained soils, and together with Pacific silver fir, Sitka spruce, and western hemlock, account for the majority of the western Washington forest. They are one of the most fire-tolerant trees in the region, and its thick bark can survive some fires. It can live over 1,000 years, and it is also the largest and tallest member of the pine family, and can reach 320 feet with 50 feet circumference. It is also the most widespread of all western trees, and its range stretches from central British Columbia to southern Mexico and from the Pacific coast to Colorado. There is one shore pine, which is classified as the same species as lodgepole pine at Little Bird Landing. This is another tree native to western Washington. It is most common near ocean shores and dry montane forest, but rare in lowland rainforest, which is more similar to the climate of Little Bird Landing. It can reach heights of over 100 feet over its 200-year lifespan. There are no Sitka spruce at Little Bird Landing currently, but there are some very close by, so I will include them on the inventory. It is a maritime species that grows along the coast from the Aleutian Island chain of Alaska to Cape Mendocino in Northern California. It is rarely found far from saltwater. Its wood has some of the highest strength-to-weight ratios. In western Washington, it is found further from the ocean than anywhere else in its range. It is typically still restricted to floodplains of ocean-flowing rivers no more than 50 miles from saltwater. Despite being one of the largest North American trees, it is relatively short-lived, typically living 250 to 350 years. The tallest Sitka spruce is 191 feet with a circumference of 58 feet. The western white pine is a native of the region that reaches heights of 160 feet and thrives in humid forest. It is typically growing prolifically in areas where its competitors have been cleared out by fire or logging. They can live up to 400 years. We have several ponderosa pines on the property, and even though they are not typically found in moist forest on the west side of the Cascades, they are growing quite well at Little Bird Landing. These pines most commonly grow below 2,600 feet in elevation, where they can often live for more than 500 years and reach heights of 235 feet with 25-foot circumference. They grow best on well-drained and exposed south-facing slopes or plateaus. Alberta spruce, also known as white spruce, is a tree native to northern temperate boreal forest, but not western Washington. It can reach up to 130 feet over its 300-year lifespan. It is relatively slow growing, and the species in our yard is particularly slow growing because it is an ornamental variety. The blue spruce is an exotic species of little bird landing. It's naturally found in Arizona, Colorado, Idaho, New Mexico, Utah, and Wyoming. In its native range, it can reach 75 feet, but our landscape variety is unlikely to reach 50 feet. The giant sequoia is another non-native tree to the area. They are the most massive trees on Earth. They may not be the tallest, but they have the thickest trunks. The tree on Little Bird Landing has not yet reached its full potential, but is still quite large. It naturally occurs on the western slopes of the Sierra Nevada mountains of California and is an endangered species. It can reach heights of 280 feet with a circumference up to 90 feet. The oldest known species on Earth is over 3,200 years old. We also have one coast redwood, which we recently purchased on a trip to Redwood National Forest. They occupy a strip of land that is quite narrow, 470 miles in length and 47 miles in width along the Pacific coast of North America. The most southerly grove is in Monterey County, California, and the most northerly grove are in the extreme southwestern region of Oregon. They typically live between 100 feet to 2,500 feet in elevation, and they usually grow in the mountains where precipitation and incoming moisture from the ocean is greater. The tallest and oldest trees are found in deep valleys and gullies where year-round streams can flow and fog drip is regular. They can reach heights of over 360 feet. The Arizona smoothbark cypress is a relatively new addition to Little Bird Landing, and this tree is native to the American Southwest, where it reaches heights of up to 70 feet over its 450-year lifespan. It seems to be thriving in the much wetter climate of the Pacific Northwest as well. We have one European larch, which is obviously not native to Washington. However, there are native larch species that inhabit the eastern part of Washington state. Larch are very unusual conifers because they are deciduous, and they are a very celebrated tree in the autumn season due to its changing needles, which become a golden yellow and certainly brighten the landscape. They are usually a tree that reaches about 100 feet tall, and in some areas they can live upwards of 900 years. The monkey puzzle tree is native to the lower slopes of the southern Andes in Chile and Argentina, where it is endangered. It can reach heights of 130 feet in its 700-year lifespan. The species itself is over 200 million years old, and we are fortunate enough to have one at Little Bird Landing.